Hello, everyone. My presentation is called From 15 Hours to 14 Minutes, and I'm just going to be talking about how I use Claude to kind of filter down a ton of footage that I had to something that was manageable for me as a human. So a little background, my name is 1 Min, it's pronounced like 1 minute. My day job, I'm a software engineer, but my side hobby, I also make board games. And so part of making board games is I have to sell the board games a lot. And part of selling it, I create a lot of like TikToks and like Instagram Reels and a lot of like short form content. So the main problem I have is that I have too much footage, right? So I usually take footage of all of the games that I run for my game, and when players play them, each game can go from like 20 minutes to 30 minutes, right? That's 30 minutes of just raw, unedited footage, a bunch of people talking about totally unrelated things, and I need that to like be filtered down into like a 30-second, 1 minute TikTok, right? And that's super hard, and the more games I have, the more footage I have, that's like super hard to do, right? Real quick, I'm gonna show you the final product of what I was able to do thanks to Claude's help.
We're not wise.
I was maybe misanthropic.
My arms are pixelating.
Oh wait, I was jealous.
I should have exploded that round.
I was trying to be smitten with Kelsey's character.
I'm indoctrinated.
You were so hypnotized by everything else going on, I would say you're blinded.
I think my polyamorousness was definitely in there.
Not gonna lie, I think I'm excessive and adventurous.
All right, I'll do unemployed.
I was unhealthy. I would say I was a little dramatic.
I think I was very confident about that article.
I am so empathetic.
I'm murdered.
I'm so sorry I murdered you.
That was a little sarcastic.
It's one of the prideful race.
I'm now trustworthy, right?
Oh my god, you hexed me.
I was being compassionate.
I'm actually really smart. Now I'm blind.
You've been blinded.
Did you say my religion was ambitious?
You weren't hexed, you hexed.
Did you guys say I was biased?
I would say that was pretty cold-blooded.
I was trying to be pixelated.
Literally, my thing is I'm lazy.
Was I conceited?
You were empathetic.
You did grouchy, I'm pretty sure.
I was dishonest the last one.
I mean, confessions are adventurous, you're right.
So there were two main challenges, right? Like I said, that short 1 minute clip was from 14 different games, and each game was about 30 minutes of raw footage, right? There's a lot of other like B-roll and a lot of different things that I needed to do. So it was a lot that I needed to process, right? I needed to find like different contexts across games, right? I need to make really like digestible TikToks, and to do that, I need to understand like the types of jokes that are being said, what's being done in this game, try to find relevant clips of that funny joke or funny moment, right? Another bad issue is that like the transcript that was built into Adobe Premiere is pretty bad. It's like good for like everyday English and like, you know, just daily words, but for stuff that's like highly technical or like highly specific to like my game, it doesn't do a great job, right? The old way that I would have done was to like just kind of like process all of that raw footage into my tiny puny human brain, and to try to like understand and try to find like little paths and like try to find connections. You know, if you're familiar with like that It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia meme of like the character with like a bunch of like lines everywhere, that's basically what you needed to do. Just like watch the entire footage, waste hours and hours of time. I don't have that kind of time right now, right? That's the old manual way. With the new AI way, it just really breaks it down into 3 simple skills. I called it clean, review, and find. So you can see the names of the skills that I gave it in Claude, but just to give you a quick overview of like what the new workflow was looking like. Step 1 was taking that raw transcript from Adobe Premiere. It's just a text file. You just hit a button and it transcribes it as to the best of its ability. But like I said, it doesn't have any knowledge of like the game, right? So it's pretty bad. Sometimes the character names would get all messed up. Sometimes like the card names would get all messed up. And then I gave Claude a PDF file of my game rules and a CSV of every single card that's in my game, right? So I was able to create this like glossary or this cheat sheet, right? I told it, hey, distill this down into a simple text file of like, now you are the expert of my game. You know the rules, you know every card that's in the game, right? In conjunction, you clean the transcript, right? I'm not looking for something that's like a subtitles, right? I'm not looking for like 100% accuracy. I just want to, you know, just to your best ability, go through this raw transcript. You know that it's bad. I told you it's bad. And now you have all this game-specific knowledge, right? So like to your best of your ability, go clean it. And if there's anything you're not sure about, like mark it as like unsure, you know, add a question mark, add something that we can grab for later, right? And then step 4, we manually review that through like an iterative and kind of like a hand-holding process. And then once that's done, once it's manually reviewed by me, do the find shorts command, and then it goes and it analyzes all 14 games at the same time, and it, you know, kind of cross-references different things, finds patterns, and then helps breaks it down and find the exact timestamps for each one, right? And then finally, it generates the outputs, and then I can take that output, create a new script that would import it directly into Premiere, do all of the automatic cutting. And then so for that example that you just saw, that took 14 hours of raw footage, and then it just cut it down into just 14 minutes. And then that is something that's super manageable. I can go in and do the manual touch-ups, the final touch-ups, add graphics and sound effects and stuff like that. Let's dive deeper into clean transcript. Basically, like I mentioned before, I don't want a subtitle, right? The first iteration of this skill, it was trying really hard to like be 100% accurate into what the players are saying. And I don't need accuracy. I just need story beats, right? I just need like content, right? What word was said, what card was used here, what card was used then. So I'm just trying to build what's basically the grep index, right? I'm not looking for a 100% accurate transcript. And anytime you're uncertain, just let me know. You know, just mark it with like a little question mark bracket, and then I'll be able to review that in the next step. I made sure that it wrote it to a file on the laptop so that if at any point it crashes, or if I think that it's using up too many tokens and I don't want to pay that much money, right? I just stop it, I compact, and then I rerun. And then next step is to review. So what we would do is it would ask me questions like, hey, I think at this moment, I think it was this. Are you like, can you tell me more? Can you like go manually check the footage? The first iteration of this skill was way too manual, right? It basically defeated the entire purpose of having this script. So what I did was like, if you're confident, if you're above certain threshold of confidence, then just go for it. You know, you don't need to ask me for everything. I would just give it as much context about the game beforehand. Like I would tell it, hey, there's 5 players. These 5 players are playing these characters. And it knows about all of the characters and the backgrounds of the characters that they're playing, so that, you know, it drastically cut down the number of manual reviews that I needed to do. And then each review was super simple because I told it to accept like single key commands. So I would just be like skip, 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 or no, or edit, or anytime I needed to manually change something, you know, it was super easy to just kind of skip forward. And then finally, the find shorts. Here's an example of sort of one clip that it found. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but you know, it just sets up like the joke from like at the beginning, earlier round of the game. It plays through the future episodes, and then, you know, it just kind of like breaks it down into like timestamps, right? And so what this does is it generates a CSV and also a markdown text. The CSV is just all timestamps of like what moments happened where, and then the markdown explains why it thinks that this is a good TikTok, why this is a funny moment. Some lessons learned here. I mentioned earlier that when I first started, like it was way too like detailed, and it was trying to do too much, and I just had to go through a couple iterations of the skill, because ultimately the point of the skill is to help cut down on editing time. And if I'm spending all that time instead like talking to Claude, then that's not time saved, right? So I'm just trying to like get it to be good enough so that it can detect these story beats and detect funny moments and keywords and stuff that I can search for, right? That I couldn't do in Premiere. Basically the next steps, you know, it gave me a ton of data. That was just one example of a clip that I've made, but again, I'm just one human and this is my side hobby, so I don't have a lot of time. But I have a huge list of CSVs and I need to go manually review them, which ones are actually funny, which ones I think will actually do well on TikTok. And so yeah, that's sort of my next steps there. Any questions on this?
Wow, very nice.
Thank you.